Hello, let's continue looking at this professional model. So let's look at this piece right here, for example. So the way I used to model things like this was that I would just start with a plane, and then I would just apply a poly on top. And then what I would do is just select vertices here, and then just kind of move and rotate into initial position. Alright, and then I would just rotate like so, and then I would go ahead and select one of these edges, and I would begin kind of extruding like this, kind of just always kind of moving it up, moving it down, and just kind of extruding like this. However, nowadays I think this is a bad method because you get very kind of uneven quality here. So I think a much better method is to start with a box or a simple cylinder. Just kind of move it where you want it to be. And delete the top and bottom. I'm going to apply Turbo Smooth. And I'm going to just insert edges and just move things around until I get them where I want them to be. Alright, about right there. Maybe I can scale the top a little bit. So with this method, what you get is this kind of mesh right here, which you can build everything on top of. And so I think this is a much easier and more consistent method of creating these kinds of meshes. So now everything can be built on top of the surface. If you want it to be underneath the surface, you can apply push modifier and enter in a value right here. So maybe not 1, maybe negative 0.25. So now everything that you build on top of this will be negative 0.25 below the previous surface. If you want it to be a positive value, enter in a positive value right here, and everything will be 0.1 above the previous surface. So you can have a very consistent, easy, effective layering effect using this as well. So now that I've got this, I want to make sure it's nice and smooth. So I want to have at least, let's say, 4 iterations. So I can make this transparent. But beforehand, I'm going to just detach a polygon off of this, clone to object. Alright. Let me change the object color real quick. And now what I can do is just go into freeform, select this object right here, and then just use step build to build a mesh right on top of this. And so there we go. I think this is just a much more consistent and easier method. So notice how the mesh is a little bit slanted here. I'm going to just Control Shift Alt to kind of reposition these to make them more even. Alright. And of course I can apply symmetry. What I can also do is, instead of building it on top, what I can do is just choose a suitable level. So maybe something like this, and then just detach the polygons that I want to be a part of this, and then do some further modeling. So let's say, for example, we want to get this kind of effect. So maybe I can apply the poly and then delete the center here, and then just either cut like this. We do have triangles left. Or what I can do is simply just select these vertices, edge constraints, and then move to the right. There we go. That we don't have to worry about retopologizing it. So there we go. I think this is a much easier method right here. Alright, let's take a look at this and see how many layers we have. So it looks like we've got this. We got these pieces. This is also made of multiple pieces right here. Don't forget we have a diamond in the middle right here. This. We have this. Interesting that this is a separate piece right here. Let's see what it looks like together. Okay. Just kind of some extra detail here. So once again, if you have these kinds of details, some people were asking, why does this need to be several pieces? Can I just have a single object right here? Well, then you kind of lose the benefit of having these nice shadows, because you don't have to rely on displacement here. What you can do is just turbo smooth this, and you can see that you get these nice shadows here upon render time, which you don't necessarily get if you have just a single mesh here. You have to do some serious sculpting here to kind of get this overhang, whereas you could just have these simple topology and get that like so. Not to mention you can very easily just apply different materials to these. But I think the main benefit is that you can keep it very simple and still get some nice shadows and all sorts of details here. But it does depend upon the mesh. If you have a more organic mesh, obviously you need to do some sculpting to get those kind of organic details. But with this kind of more simple mesh, it's very easy just to model it out and keep it with separate pieces right here. So in order to replicate that, what I can do is just open subdiv, and the reason I want to do that is because I can just select this vertex here and crease it for that kind of perfect crease. Alright, to get that surrounding detail, once again, go into board level, select the border, create shape, select the new object. We may have to do some changes here. For example, I can select this, right click, let's make that a corner. Alright, I can make these corners as well. So notice how they're giving us a lopsided effect. Right click, corner, there we go. Rendering, enable in viewport. Let's change it from radial to rectangular, and let's greatly decrease the size. Alright, and there we go. So a very easy way to get these kinds of details. Once again, notice how you get this bad clipping issue. Let's change the object color so you can see that easy. So notice what's happening right here. Well, we can go into interpolation, right click here to get rid of that effect, because you can see how the complexity is giving us this effect right here. Alright, add a poly, add all sorts of details. So for example, I can easily kind of have a nested detail in here. So what I can do in this situation is just build this negatively. Right, then I can, let's say, grow this and attach this as a clone. Select this new object, and I'm going to flip the polygons. I'm going to just bridge two edges first of all. Then I'm going to loop, deselect these edges and bridge. Then you can select the polygon here, hold shift to select this, and have a positive extrusion here. So now we have two separate objects, and we can give this a different, let's say, a gold trim, and there we go. And this is going to be an object that's nicely nestled within this object. So there you go. Notice how we can get a lot of detail very easily, very quickly, very simply here. Alright, so we have these details within here as well. These kinds of wing details, looks like. So once again, I'll just select the polygon from here. Select this object. And step build. Alright, I'm going to just select these vertices. I want this to be sharp, let's say, so I'm going to crease them here, open subdiv, add a poly. Alright. I'll make this more curved. I just want to establish the curvature first, then I can make this more curved. Alright. Now what I can do is either use push. Remember, this is set to 0.2, which means push is going to be negative 0.2. And there we go. Or I can, of course, use conform as well. So what I can do is just right click to make this 0, conform, and conform it like that, and delete this. So there we go. That's how you can get these kinds of details right here. Then we just want to shell. You can add additional detail here if you want. So what I can do right here is just have this, and maybe I can just insert a loop here. Let's say I want this to be even, but not this, so I'm just going to insert a loop through here. Then I'm going to remove this or use set flow on this. There we go. So since they used support loops, we can do that as well, just like this. Bring, connect, there we go. Alright, next we got this kind of diamond shape, and we got these kinds of shapes as well, so we can just cylinder. I like to use a power of 4, so let's say 16, auto grid, and just put it right on here. Do some further modeling on this if you need to. You can see in a lot of situations there's just all sorts of clipping, so you don't have to make it perfect, you can just have it kind of clip like this. The important thing is just make it look good enough, make it look good at render time. And also thinking about how close the camera is. I mean, if the camera is this close, then maybe you want to be a little bit neater. But if the camera is at this distance or further away, then this will suffice just fine. So you can just model details here. So if I apply symmetry and go into mirror, notice how this is happening. So what I need to do is switch to local, Alt A, make sure this orientation is on as well, otherwise it won't work. Because I need the rotation as well, and there we go, that's how you get the symmetry working. Alright, and for the diamond as well, we can rely on our previous mesh. There we go. Switch this back to view or world. And then we can just use step build, make sure you got the right object here. And we can step build a diamond onto here. So we just start very simple here. Symmetry. Just cap this, Alt P, and there we go. In this case, what I can do is just, instead of adding support loops, I can just Control A to select everything and just give this a uniform crease value. You can see here how they have loops on these objects, but not in the center, which is going to give the center more smoothness. So you notice the difference between sharpness of these objects versus in the center, it's nice and smooth. That may be one of the benefits of separating the object, because if I now try to insert a loop through here, notice how it goes throughout the entire object. Whereas I could just, in this situation, go into border level, select this, hold Control and click here to convert to polygon, then just do a bunch of growing. Right then, for example, just attach that. So now I can have a sharper result here and keep the inside nice and smooth. There we go. We can also just use support loops. And that's how you get this kind of detail. Thank you for watching and take care.